There has been a huge shakeup at Aston Martin today as they get a new team principal, and the progress at Williams might be going a little bit better than most people know about. So let's jump in, let's talk about it. So the news is that Andy Cowell is going to be becoming the team principal, and Mike Crack is getting a new role, I think, as the chief trackside officer. And this is some pretty important news at Aston Martin, and it will reflect on their ability to perform in 2025 and probably more importantly 2026. Andy Cowell was recently appointed CEO at Aston Martin as recently as October, but now his role is being expanded and Mike Crack's is kind of being dialed back. Now, we're not sure if this is performance related. I don't know if it's any kind of punishment on Mike Crack. Maybe he actually just wanted this role change. Maybe they just think it makes sense in terms of the team going forward. It's hard to say. But Andy Cowell is becoming team principal and he's going to have a lot of people reporting to him. He's going to be the CEO and the team principal, and he's going to have the aerodynamics, the engineering and performance departments, trackside, and the AMR technology campus all going to be reporting to him. He's a team principal. I mean, makes sense. Mike Crack, on the other hand, well, he's going to be focusing on getting the most performance out of the car when they're trackside. His role is the chief trackside officer. If you're wondering, this is Andy Cowell, and that's Mike Crack. Mike Crack kind of has an unfortunate name. Cowell says he spent the last 3 months understanding and assessing our performance, and I've been incredibly impressed by the dedication and commitment and hard work of this team. And I think he kind of gives a hint that 2025 is perhaps not where their focus is. With the completion of the AMR technology campus and our transition in 2026 to a full works team, alongside our strategic partners, we are on a journey to become a championship winning team. I mean, they're doing all the right things, right? And they claim that these changes are just a natural evolution. Okay, fair enough. You might be wondering where you know this guy from. Well, basically, Andy Cowell was one of the key architects of the Mercedes 2014 to 2020 domination. And he was apparently an extraordinary leader. And as a layperson like looking in, you never really know who is responsible for what. These teams are obviously huge and there's many people involved. How much of an impact does one person have over, say, like the team's culture and all that kind of jazz? We don't really know. But if you look at what Aston Martin are currently assembling, they have Andy Cowell now, who, you know, apparently one of the key architects of the Mercedes domination era, and they have somebody else, don't they? They have that man right there, Adrian Newey. And that is going to be quite a force to be reckoned with. They've taken some people from Mercedes, they've taken some people from Red Bull. Are they actually building a championship winning team for 2025? Well, probably not 2025. It kind of looks like, and it kind of feels like, that they are setting themselves up almost entirely for 2026. I wouldn't be surprised if they basically kind of like sandbag themselves in 2025. Some might argue that maybe they already... However, Newey's kind of a little bit, right? I don't think he's worried, right? But he did get a little bit hampered by the fact that he's going to be a couple of months behind because he said that Red Bull have effectively been blocking his tools. Now, I'm not really sure what tools my man would be using because I am a layperson after all, but this means he's not going to be ready for Aston Martin. He's going to be starting, I think, only around about March, whereas the aero can be worked on from January 1st this year for 2026, but he's not even there until March. So, and he said, so I'll already be kind of 2 months behind the curve. I'm not sure a 2-month handicap is necessarily going to matter to Adrian Newey, but it might do. It's not going to. He's going to pump anyway. And here is the statement about 2025. Obviously, Aston wants to do their best they can in 2025, but my kind of focus will be on the 26 regulations and this big change because he starts on March 2nd. Basically admitting here that 2026 is where he's going to be working. For 2025, he might have a little bit of an insight. You know, he needs to understand the car that they have, probably so he can work out what car they should build. But I really do think that Aston Martin are going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with in 2026. If they're not, then something's gone very wrong. Mr. Stroll Sr. might have something to say about that. I don't think blocking his tools are really going to do too much. A lot of it is probably in his mind and in his little notebook that he carries around as he walks the grid. If I was an Aston Martin fanboy and maybe even a Fernando Alonso fanboy, which I kind of am, I think everybody kind of is, then these would be exciting times for sure. And I think whilst 2025 is going to be an interesting year, I kind of put Aston Martin in the 2026 bracket. But maybe they'll surprise us. Speaking about a team that might surprise us, well, Williams have kind of been on the path to improvement in recent years. For quite a period of time, they were absolutely dog water. They've been getting a little bit better, but James Vowles actually says the world can't see all of the Williams F1 progress. Well, we can see a bit, I think. We can kind of tell they're not as bad as they used to be. The ship appears to have been steadied, but are they actually going to be getting towards the front of the grid? I still kind of doubt that one a little bit myself. He says there has been a lot of really positive bits, but again, I'm dubious of whether or not there's enough positive bits to get them from being towards the back towards the front. Maybe though they'll be like good mid-team that can challenge occasionally, kind of like what Haas have become in recent years. He says he's been walking around the building and he can basically just feel the vibe. It's a whole different world, he says. And I think Williams actually not really aiming for massive stuff in 2025. It sounds like they're also going to be focusing on 2026. And Williams kind of, and Vels kind of backs it up, but he says, I've always said that the journey is 23, 24, 25. They're just progression. So if that's the journey, what's the destination? Well, that's 2026 when we get the rule changes and the spec changes, and it's a whole different ball game basically. He talks about how he was a little bit frustrated this year because they finished 9th, and that's obviously a bit annoying for them. He talks about how some races could have gone their way, for example in Las Vegas if they didn't crash in Q3 and stuff like that. You know, that's just the way that it goes. And I kind of believe, right, it looks like they're not the chaotic force that they were a couple of years ago. It looks like they're kind of back to steadying the ship, and we don't have as many terrible back markers anymore. Williams have been terrible, Haas have been terrible. They're no longer terrible. So it's kind of good to see this, right? I think the back markers are becoming less back markers and actually competitive midfielders, and the back is very much narrowing down. If there even is going to be a back marker in 2025, obviously somebody will finish last, but a lot of teams are kind of getting their act together, I think. Hopefully Williams being one of them. Well, they kind of already have, but hopefully it will continue. We've been talking about this for a couple of days now, but it has finally been confirmed. Alpine have confirmed that Colapinto is going to be driving for them as a reserve driver. The main kind of conversation around that is, what does that mean for Jack Doohan? Having Colapinto right there, you know, anytime that, you know, Jack Doohan makes a mistake, it's going to be Colapinto's face that they show, be like, yikes, maybe I'll be getting the drive next week. It's not a good situation, but I think what might have not helped Jack Doohan is that he effectively finished like second from last in Abu Dhabi, and his pace wasn't very good. That might have caused Alpine to be a little bit more careful about going forward. Maybe they're like, oh, do we really want to have him in full time? And that's why Colapinto is there in case they need to replace him. But it's not a good place. I just kind of hate this. I hate this scenario, but it's a business at the end of the day, right? It's Alpine's job to make sure that they do the best that they can. And if that ultimately means replacing Doohan with Colapinto, then they'll do it. It's a cutthroat business. It would be sad though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.